Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the markets, right? Not just the markets in general. We're going to be going over so many coins. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, highly recommend for you guys to join the Discord community. We can see that someone in the community has, made 80% on the ZBEC call. So we can see, boom, they are up 83%, $2,000 all time. So highly recommend joining. We are going to be calling out multiple quality coins over the next few months as we are going to be confirmed bullish, and the risk of things going down and being trash are very low. So yeah, highly recommend that. Listen, right, first we'll talk about Bitcoin for roughly just a couple of seconds, and then we are going to talk about altcoins. Overall, we know that Bitcoin is set to pump over the next 2 weeks, right? So I expect Bitcoin to just kind of be ranging between the all-time highs and all the way down potentially to most likely $105,000, right? That is going to be the main range I'm looking for Bitcoin, right? To be bouncing off these areas, possibly a fake out. We're going to probably have one fake out at one point where we come down, come back above, and then, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking to be going. And once we start going, we will not, we will not stop. We will not stop. So yeah, that being said, let's dive into, marking up altcoins. We're going to start with Ondo, right? I haven't covered Ondo in a while. We can see, right, I do have some stuff marked up, right? Because for the community, I talked about a 92-cent buy zone, exactly came into our buy zone. And now we are ready to be launching. Once we launch from this area, I expect Ondo to hit $1.20 quickly, because that is the next relevant range. Okay, when we look at ranges, that is the next relevant range. I will say, in case of a liquidity sweep, in case of a massive fake out all of a sudden and Bitcoin dominance spiking, right? Because there could be a massive manipulation candle. I do have a 77-cent buy just in case, right? I do have it just in case, but I really don't think the markets will be going down 20%. But just in case, I do have some sniper entry. So for Ondo, there's a free one right over there because there is an institutional candle. But you have to remember, that this Ondo price down here was when Bitcoin was at 75K. So the likeliness of us hitting it is low, but it does, just in case you want to have a sniper entry, it doesn't hurt getting a nice dollar cost average in. Once we kind of go above $1.20, I mean, the next relevant zone practically is going to be coming back to $1.65. We can see that there is multiple support and resistance over here. And ladies and gentlemen, we can see there's practically a double top, right? So when there's usually a double top, what does that mean? There is liquidity, there's stop losses there. So the markets are going to be looking to take that out, right? Boom, do something like this over the next few short weeks. Boom, 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 possibly sweep below again, and then continue going up higher and higher before we reach all-time highs. I do think Ondo is going to be one of the best performing altcoins, just because it does have to do with BlackRock, JP Morgan, and it's much more than that, right? It is much more with that. We're not going to dive into details because this is about marking up multiple charts. We can see that, talked about a great time to be dollar cost averaging for DIA, right? It hit our zone of 45 cents, and I don't really expect it to drop much lower, unless of course there was some kind of liquidity grab. But if that was going to be the case, it probably dropped down to 42 cents. Overall, I do expect this coin to do well this cycle. Over the next coming weeks, I do expect this coin to kind of just, whether or not there's going to be some type of pullback, I expect it to burst above 70 cents. The reason why I expect it is because there is a big support and resistance here, right? We can see last time we tapped off it, we sold. It's very rare for a coin to tap twice and then sell off heavily. So I expect it to just burst through the 70 cents, the 65-cent zone, coming back above here. Once we're here, honestly, it should be kind of easy to just get to the all-time highs over the next few short weeks. The next main big zones I would be looking for, ladies and gentlemen, right? If we draw something up like this, I do believe once we kind of get above $1, we should have really, really nice momentum and structure because we will be above this trend line. And then kind of expect for us to go fairly quick up until $2 and roughly 20 cents to this zone. Okay, then we're probably going to consolidate a little bit, and then again we're going to be bursting up once again very quickly to 450 because there is a lot of imbalance. Imbalance is when there's a lack of structure, right? A real lack of support and resistance, which means we can mimic and copy the exact type of pump as there was here on the dump, right? It dumped here, so we're most likely going to fly high quickly with the pump going to 440. Now, once we get to that price, we'll update you once again. Something like XDC, right? Very, very unique structure. I had a very big rally in the beginning of November, went all the way up to 16 cents, going from, just 2.5 cents to 16 cents. So roughly 7 to 8 times pump, which is what we love to see. However, I do expect this coin to do very, very well once we start breaking above this big zone. Overall, over the next couple of days, we could see a dip back down to possibly, this zone over here. This zone of 6 to 6.5 cents is where I would be looking to be buying, right? Once we kind of go from here, I mean, to save some time overall, the next big thing is to kind of get retested off this trend line, probably sell off a little bit, but then eventually reclaim it. Once we do reclaim this, it is going to be very, very dangerous and very, very good for this coin, because then that's when I expect, probably altcoin season, everything to start pumping really hard. And that's when we're going to get a big expansion, kind of like the way we got from 2.5 cents to 16 cents. But this time we are going to be flying high. So exciting times for XDC. Now, if we go to something like HBAR, have it drawn up a decent amount, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that look, it is no coincidence that we have bounced off this area multiple times of 17, 18 cents, because we can see there is a lot of support and resistance, multiple taps, right? I don't really expect this coin to drop below 17 cents. Worst case scenario, coming back down to this zone, this area here, to bounce off, to then continue to rally hard, right? I do expect this coin to do very, very well this cycle. We've seen it go from roughly 4 cents upwards of 40. So, 10x, right? This coin literally 10x. And, I have very, very high hopes for this coin. Once we kind of get above this yellow zone though, right? Once we kind of get above 25 cents, we are going to be in very, very bullish territory, because we're going to be on the upper side of the zones, right? We're going to be extremely bullish. We're going to be ranging between 25 cents and 38 cents before we break out again. Once we do break out, I really do think this coin is going to do very, very well, potentially going up to $1.50 or $2 this cycle. Now, let's talk about Pangolin, right? Pangolin. This coin, it gets manipulated very, very often. Overall, right, I do like the structure of this coin. I do expect this coin to be moving more in bursts, and I do already see the momentum shift in this coin, right? I already do see it, right? We have been trending down for some time, just like all the other coins, we've been trending down. If we go over here, do something like this, right? We've been respecting this. We had a huge rally. Now we're kind of just chilling sideways, going, selling off slowly, but kind of still consolidating. We had a big manipulation wick, which is what we love to see. We could see some kind of tap into this wick somewhere over here at roughly 15 cents before we continue to go up. Overall, I expect this coin to do decent this cycle. They are taking a little bit too long with version 3. Honestly, there's so many other projects that do harder stuff than what they're doing, and they do it at way better pace. So that's the only concern I have for this coin. But in terms of the structure, right, the next zone we would be looking to reclaim is this big, massive support. Once we kind of reclaim 22 cents, I do expect good things, right? I do expect good things. The next zones would be practically getting above 40 cents, right? 38 to 40 cents would be the main thing. We're here. And once we do that, I mean, we are going to be looking to take out these highs, practically a double top at roughly 62 cents. But once we kind of get 262 cents. We should be looking to be breaking out, kind of like the way we broke out in February, right? The way we broke out in February. So exciting, exciting times. Radium has made a recovery after the pump fund drama, right? Or a quick pump or whatever the hell it's called. But we have also retested very, very well fundamentally on a big support. Overall, I do expect this coin to recover and do well this cycle. I do expect this coin to at least be reaching, all-time highs of $17. So, even worst case scenario, if it doesn't do that well, it should do a decent rally over the next couple of days. We could see a little bit of a pullback, but overall, we are also consolidating, right? So some type of manipulation wick to the downside would not surprise me. Fake out to then continuing to rally. We do have a lot of imbalance here, so we should kind of fill it up quick from going from 330, right, 320, all the way up to 450 kind of quickly, right? So expect quick big pumps over the next few weeks with this coin. Turbo, we talk about every single day, but we'll talk about it right now. Overall, Turbo is looking really, really good, right? Turbo is looking good. We do have a liquidity grab zone potentially at 0.0045, where I would be looking to be getting in my snipe, right? In the Discord, I called out yesterday that I do expect this coin to be selling off roughly from this range to this range. This was like the main area I was looking for. And that's exactly what happened. We were going into the imbalance, right? Selling off. So, technical analysis does not lie. ICP, right? ICP, it hit 580 right now. It is currently at 530. A good time to be buying overall, right? A good time to be buying. We do have this trend line over here. If we are looking for some type of buys, right? This structure doesn't look the strongest. We could potentially tap into a zone right here of roughly, let's just say 480, where that would be a fantastic buy. And then once we kind of go into that zone, we should kind of go quickly upwards to 750 very, very quickly, very, very quickly. Once we get above 750, right? Once we kind of get above 750, we should be kind of flying high up to, I would say, where is it? This structure, roughly to $12. So once we get there, we'll update you once again. Myro is an iffy coin, but the bias is the same for what I have here. I do think, buying this coin between 2.5 cents and 2.7 cents is a good buy if you're looking to take the risk for something like Myro. I do expect this coin to have more pumps over the next couple of weeks. Don't know how high necessarily, because that whole thing is just, it's a little iffy, right? Kaspa overall is looking good. Would not surprise me if we tap back into the 9.5 cent zone before we continue to rally. Once we do tap into the 9.5 zone, I would not be surprised if we just kind of rally quickly over 15 cents. Because the last time we were around this area, we kind of just always shot up very, very quickly. So it would not surprise me, right? And that is the next relevant area. Boom, right over here. Something like our beloved render, ladies and gentlemen, right? I do expect very, very good things this cycle. The next zone for render is going to be $7. After that, it is practically going to be, I would say, let's just say $10, $10.50. So once we do what we have to do, right? Whether it's a little bit of a pullback, whether it's just going straight up, right? I do expect this coin to do well and to go from zone to zone fairly quickly, right? From 470, 450 to $7, then to 1070. And then once we kind of get to all-time highs, we should be bursting up. AKT, need this to come above the 210 zone. Once we kind of get above the 210 zone, we should kind of fly high quickly to the 457. If we look at something like Flux, it is the same thing with this coin. We are kind of in hell. Want this coin to start closing above 30 cents. Once we close above 30 cents, we are going to be back a little bit into the green. The next big zone is going to be 40 cents. And once we kind of are back in 40 cents, we should fly high quickly to 75 cents. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye. Portfolio reviews, economic and global updates and news, frequent up-to-date technical analysis, and a very supportive community, sell and buy calls, and trading education is provided. If that sounds good to you, now is the time to act. Once the markets start moving, there is no I should have, coulda, woulda. Now is the time. If you want to take things to another level, we have the blueprint that covers everything from A to Z in crypto that you need. No fluff, no bullshit, just the most important news, fundamentals, and technicals to have you succeed in these markets.